First it was the engine bay, then it was the wheels, and now it's time for the bodywork. So hello and a very warm welcome to the Sparkling Autos YouTube channel for the third installment of this Honda Civic detail. To give you all a brief background then, this car belongs to a good friend of mine who had, at my request, avoided washing his car for quite some time, although I think it's fair to say that he didn't take too much convincing. So this was back in June and he had just had a busy few months planned his wedding, so whilst he and his new bride were on their honeymoon, I had his keys and decided to sort this mess out once and for all. So let's get on with it. Continuing on then from the engine and wheel videos, which if you haven't seen I'll leave a link in the video description, I'm sticking with Garage Therapy products, starting with a combination of Decon shampoo and Snow Foam version 2. So the Decon shampoo obviously was already made up, but for the Snow Foam I've added roughly 100ml of product to 900ml of water, and the reason for making up a full litre will become apparent as this job progresses. And I'm also using the MJJC S version 3, no particular reason for that choice, but it was new to me at the time and it's a pretty decent lance to be fair. As for the Decon shampoo solution, well if you've seen the previous two videos, you'll know that I wasn't exactly shy with the trigger and I even managed to spill some over the engine, but there's still roughly 650ml left, so that's more than enough to pre-wash this Honda. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, although granted this would be much easier if I just made the solution up in a pump sprayer, but it's never a bad thing to give your wrists some much needed exercise. So just as before, I'm using plenty of product, as if I only use 350ml doing the wheels and the engine bay, I know I can be as liberal as I like with the rest of the car without the need to make up any more. I should point out this is still the same 1:9 solution, or 10% if you prefer, which ordinarily would be considered a very strong mix to say the least, but remember I'm dealing with a car that hasn't been properly washed for the best part of a year and hasn't actually been cleaned at all since it was last on the channel for a non-caustic TFR test 4 months prior to recording this one. Typically speaking though, I'd use Decon shampoo for this purpose at no more than 1:19 or a 5% solution, as I find that's more than strong enough for most jobs. You may also notice that I haven't pre-rinsed the car prior to applying any products. This is something I never do now, unless there's actually layers of caked on muck, as I don't find pre-rinsing has any benefits and only serves to waste time. But that's just my preference. If it's something you prefer to do, then that's entirely up to you. And now that there's a good coat of pre-wash laid down, it's time to blanket that with some Snow Foam. Now don't be alarmed by the brightness or the initial consistency here. This is just what I refer to as the wet coat, something I'll be covering, excuse the pun, in much more detail in a future video, but basically I've recently developed a method where I put a thin wet coat of foam over the entire car and then top that off with a much thicker coat. And as you can see, I've only used about 200ml so far. Well, you might be able to see if I'd hold the bottle steady. And after a couple of minutes, I adjust the dial and apply a second, much thicker coat over the car. But like I said, I will cover this in more detail in another video, but I found that this method just gives me that consistency that I'm looking for. So I'm going to leave that to dwell for up to 5 minutes, but in the meantime, let's take a look around the car. Well, this certainly doesn't look ideal for a start. It seems like the overflow pipe is blocked, so that's something that's definitely going to need addressed. And it also looks like I missed the sill with the foam. Well, nobody's perfect, but at least it has the Decon shampoo dwelling on it, so it should still clean up nicely. Taking a closer look, and you can even see some discoloration in the foam falling off the car, as some of those heavier dirt deposits on the lower parts have been softened up. So although it's all looking good, it was a very warm day and this is a foam which isn't renowned for its dwelling abilities, so I think 5 minutes might be pushing it, and I'm just going to go ahead and get it rinsed off now. As always, when removing pre-wash products as opposed to shampoos, I'm rinsing from the bottom up. This way I can make sure that I've thoroughly removed all the product, particularly on the lower third of the car where most of the dirt will have been present. But I'm sure you don't need me to ramble on about how I rinse a car, so I'll be quiet for a moment and let you see that beautiful Aegean blue colour start to shine through again. And I'm back for a moment. So before going any further, I need to do something about this, largely because I don't particularly want water contaminated with fuel splashing over the car once I've cleaned it. As you can see though, carefully prodding the overflow pipe, and I do know what I'm doing here, has had no effect, so the blockage must be further down, and the simplest way to resolve that, as I try to knock my camera over, is to simply blast it out. I'm sure some of you, not least of all the car's owner who hasn't actually seen this until now, will be a bit nervous at this stage, especially as this Civic, like many modern cars, doesn't have a fuel cap cover over the filler neck. But worry not, 1, I'm not aiming the water directly into the fuel inlet, and 2, more importantly, modern cars have a pretty good anti-siphon system which won't allow the valves to open with water pressure alone, and any excess liquid will simply be directed to the overflow via this little hole. Of course, if you're not confident, just stick a glove over the neck. And hey presto, it's draining again. So on once again with the rest of the rinsing. So the car's still safely in the shade for now, but as you can see in the background, that midsummer sun is getting higher in the sky, so it's time to get moving, as I want to get as much done before the bodywork gets too warm to use products safely. Wash time now, and starting with a good dollop of Garage Therapy's car shampoo in the wash bucket, and then top up the hot water in both buckets with some nice cold tap water. Of course I can't forget about the obligatory social media overflowing sud shots. And once I'm done messing around with buckets and suds, it's time to start washing the car, from top to bottom of course. Now, if you're a regular viewer, or even if you've only seen 1 or 2 of my videos before, you're probably aware that I don't make adverts or promotional videos for brands. Whether I've purchased products or been sent them, I always strive to be brutally honest, and if I don't like a product, I've no hesitation in binning it. But by the same token, I think it's only fair to point out when a product is at the other end of that scale, and Garage Therapy's car shampoo is undoubtedly one of those products. It's very rare for me to get excited about a shampoo. In fact, I tend to be of the opinion that a shampoo is nothing more than a lubricant for your chosen wash media, and it's the pre-wash products used prior to washing that do most of the work. However, even if that is the case, the quality of the lubricant varies widely, and this is genuinely one of the most enjoyable shampoos on the market. Its slickness is as good as any, it produces plenty of suds even with the smallest amount of product, those suds last for a long time, and it smells great without needing to add any sickly sweet shop scents in there. In fact, it's that slick that I even have to do my pad flips so quickly that you can barely see them, otherwise I'd probably drop the wash pad. See what I mean? Blink and you'll miss it. Now don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with watching me clean every panel with the wash pad, so I'll hurry it along here and we can look at a bit of brushwork. Once again returning to the versatile GT Decon shampoo, this time for a bit of extra cleaning power where it's needed, starting with the badges. And I've absolutely no idea why I'm leant over like this. I can only assume it's some pointless effort to unsuccessfully keep my head out of shot. Of course, it's always good practice to use soft, good quality brushes on your paintwork to avoid inflicting any damage, but just remember that the type of brush is more important than the brand or the price tag. And on that very subject, I'm actually using a slightly stiffer brush, although still safe enough for paintwork, on this number plate hanger area, purely because this area has likely never been cleaned before. Now when it comes to less delicate areas, like the fuel filler area for instance, removing grime is more important than protecting that hard plastic surface, so it's fine to go even stiffer here, and using cheaper generic black bristled brushes for this job is absolutely ideal. And it's not an easy thing to say black bristled brushes, believe me. But just remember to switch back to the softer brushes again for the more sensitive parts. And the final area for the brushwork in this video is probably one of the most satisfying areas to clean, and that's around the window rubbers, particularly on cars which aren't owned by obsessed enthusiasts, as there's every chance that this is the first time they'll ever have been properly cleaned since the car rolled off the production line. This is one of those areas where the dirt can be clearly visible, as it even changes the colour of the suds. No stone left unturned, and no hidden bodywork left unwashed. Another area which is neglected, yet it's the area which gives the first impression when someone opens a door, so why would you not clean it? There are plenty of clean suds left in your bucket, so just take an old mitt and spend a couple of minutes making a big difference. And when it comes to rinsing in here, I obviously try to avoid water entering the cabin, but I don't worry too much if some does. It's only water, and the amount that sneaks in will easily dry out in this heat without causing any issues. Of course, that doesn't mean you should simply let all of the suds run into the boot area, but I think at the time here I was more concerned with keeping my arm out of the shot and not enough time looking at what I was doing. It's no big deal, as once again the warmer temperatures made drying it out afterwards effortless on my part. But when rinsing the tailgate, I've actually turned the machine off to give me a little more control over the spray. And we finally come to rinsing the product off, which highlights yet another positive about this shampoo, and that's the ease of rinse. It really is effortless, and in 3 years of using it regularly off camera as one of my favourite shampoos, I've never had a single problem removing it. As you can see, there's absolutely no protection on this car. However, you won't have to wait too long for me to rectify that, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. But of course, once I do protect the paintwork, the pH neutral formula of this shampoo will massively reduce any impact the contact washing has on the protection, or to put simply, it'll help keep it shiny for longer. And that is the wash process complete. So next up will be a brief chemical decontamination, and then we'll move on to the finishing stages, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. So if you've made it this far, as always, you have my utmost appreciation. Remember to give the video a thumbs up, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. Take care.